Welcome to the Sisterhood of Healing podcast, the podcast that wants to help you reach your best and most divine potential. Each week, we dive into topics concerning inner healing, wellness, and spirituality. We discuss strategies and practice from our own personal experiences regarding higher energies, trauma, and connecting to the divine as we take you through our own personal journeys to discover the highest versions of ourselves. In combination with guest speakers, we bring you a comprehensive guide to mental and spiritual wellness and the ability to connect to yourself and the world around you on a deeper level. I'm Nicole, and I'm Christina, and we are two sisters who want to take you along on our spiritual and healing journey. We are each on our own individual healing and spiritual path and bring unique perspectives regarding yoga, chakra healing, meditation, intuition, and trauma healing. Sometimes life is messy, sometimes it's confusing, and sometimes everything falls perfectly into place. Join us as we navigate the path to divine enlightenment together.
Hello, sisters, brothers, and non-binary listeners to the Sisterhood of Healing podcast. On today's episode, we have Brittini Burton. She's with Big Pussy Energy, and she's going to talk about sensual empowerment. So welcome, Brittini. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Hi, everyone. Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to dig into some BPE.
The pleasure is all ours. We're so excited that you connected with us.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. We'll get started. You can introduce yourself. Tell us about who you are and what you do.
Yeah. So my name is Brittini Burton. I am a sensual empowerment facilitator, and I am the founder and CEO of Big Pussy Energy. So essentially, Big Pussy Energy is a space that I created where right now it's female identifying people get to explore, own, and embody their sensual energy through movement. And Big Pussy Energy is really founded upon the movements of sensual embodiment, twerking, and lap dancing, where you get to really experience your sensual energy through different ways. So sensual embodiment is the first pillar, and that's really to awaken your sensual energy. And I specifically am doing sensual energy because that was my whole journey. Of course, the sensual energy is something that culturally, no matter where you are from, no matter what upbringing, if you have religious background or not, I don't, but I still have the cultural upbringing of my sensual energy is my belief when I grew up was that my sensual energy, let alone my sexual energy, is for someone else. And that if I'm doing it, if I'm embodying any sort of sensuality, it's for someone and it's to get attention from others. So there's a lot of, for women especially, there's a lot of shame and there's a lot of hiding and suppressing involved. And so in my journey where I opened myself up to my own innate sensual energy, is really where I found so much power. And through that power, it's like the feminine power of just knowing who the fuck you are and confidence, and just being able to honestly walk into a room without making any sound and people wanting to know who you are. Like that's BPE. And so I use that through sensual embodiment. And that's where you really get to tap into your body, get into your sensual energy. I use twerking as a way to heal the sisterhood wound of, instead of judging and criticizing and picking women apart because they're showing up in their sensual energy, I actually empower and encourage women to celebrate each other, like literally like clapping your hands and like wooing like each other on. And then I use lap dancing as a way to be witnessed in your own pleasure and being witnessed in your sensual energy. So it's like a whole journey when you step into a BPE experience.
Oh my gosh, I love this. I have to tell you that when we first connected and I was checking out BPE, I'm like, oh, thank you. Like, I'm so glad that you're creating this space and this whole movement for women to connect with their sensuality, because like you said, like in culture, it's so suppressed and it's like almost like you said, you're not experiencing your sensuality for yourself. It's always for someone else. And it's so powerful to just take that back and to own it and to like not be ashamed of your body and like who you are. And I love it. Like I love what you're doing. And I've not met anybody else or come across anybody else that does this. And I just think it's so cool. I just think it's so cool. So hats off to you for like starting a whole movement. I think this is incredible.
Thank you. And it's been a really, I mean, there's so much to talk about the journey, but like in this movement that I've been in on my own personal life, like it's been also really cool because the more, because I say sensual empowerment, like the more I get into my sensuality, the more separate sexuality and sensuality become. And in society, sensuality and sexuality are like, what's the difference? And they're kind of just like enmeshed in each other. But the more you embody and really like explore sensuality as a separate thing, the more you recognize how separate it is and how your sensuality is how you experience the world and experiencing it through pleasure and through your body. Like sensuality is a very embodied experience using your senses. So it's also taking away like maybe the fear around like, oh my God, sensuality, like, ooh, that seems really intense, right? So yeah, it's been a journey.
Oh, that's really cool. I have a friend actually, she did a couple of weeks ago, she did boudoir photos.
Uh-huh.
And I've always wanted to do them, never done them. But she did boudoir photos and she showed me them today. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, look at you. She's like, it felt so empowering.
Yeah, that's funny you say that. I just got boudoir photos done like 2 weeks ago. And photography for me has been a huge part of my journey because I see photography as a tool. Photography really allows you to embody like parts of you that you might not see in yourself every day. And so I used it throughout my journey. So I started my journey 2 years ago and it was like a feminine journey. And in that I got like a feminine photo shoot done where I had a photographer take different pictures of me in different archetypes of my feminine, like the innocent, like maybe like more childlike feminine to the wild woman, like I had mud on my face. And so like photography is an amazing tool to use for sure to pull out the parts of you that you don't really see or recognize in your everyday life. And boudoir specifically, like I said, I just did 2 weeks ago. It's super empowering, and you can just do it. Most women do it for themselves. Yeah, we know you can do it for men and for or someone in your relationship, but I'm single and I did it purely just for me. So it's super empowering.
That is really cool. Yeah. She gets like a book of all her photos and she's like, these pictures are really cool. I'm like, you need to put those up somewhere. She's like, where am I going to put them? I'm like, hang them up in your house, put them in your bedroom, put them in your guest bathroom. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Well, God bless what I do. I just post them on Instagram. So the world gets to see that they're really beautiful.
Yeah, they are. I've seen them and they're gorgeous.
Yeah. Thank you.
So what inspired you to start Big Pussy Energy?
Yeah, so Big Pussy Energy, like I've kind of been hinting, like is something from my own personal journey. It's not like I was like, I don't know what to do in my life. I'm just gonna do this, I guess. It was something that was part of my journey. Like, so before I moved to Austin, I'm from Austin, or I live in Austin, Texas now. I've been here for almost a year. I moved here in January. But prior to that, I was nomadic. Like I traveled the world for 8 years since I was 19. Um, and I worked on yachts. So I was a deckhand, which is a really like male dominated energy. Being a deckhand, like as a female, like I was literally called female deckhand because it's so like separate. It's like a whole nother like tier. And so it was super easy. It's super easy to this day for me to be my masculine energy. I think a lot of women can relate to that. I mean, we do live in a patriarchal society. That's not saying it's a negative or a positive. It's just a neutral. It's patriarchal. Like we live in our minds. We live in our logic. We have to, it's like A to B action. Like we're praised on our action. We're praised on what we're doing. So just very masculine energy. And so I found myself really just naturally there. And in my relationships, my sexual relationships, it really started because I had such dull sex life. Like I literally was like, how is this what people are so excited about? I would pretend like, oh my God, sex is amazing. But like it was from performance. Like I just like I never, sex was never a priority for me. And like, to be honest, it isn't right now in my life. It's so I got curious. I was like, why do people like literally ruin relationships over something like it? And um my driving force was like, it was just dull to me. I felt like I was always energetically really exhausted after sex because I was like giving, and it didn't feel like I was surrendering. I didn't feel like I relaxed. It just felt like I was performing, and it felt for me that like my orgasm was more of a validation for my partner's ego.
Mhm.
So my pleasure was more for his validation of like, oh, you're good, you did well. And even if I did orgasm, it felt very forced. Like I was like pushing it out, like mentally just being like, I got orgasm, orgasm. So it was really like not enjoyable. And when I was traveling, I was like, I really just want to have an amazing sexual experience. Like I knew I knew what I craved. Like I knew what a soul level sexual experience could feel like. I've never experienced it, but that's when I was like, I need to get in a relationship. So that's when I was like, I want to get in a relationship. So basically I did get in a relationship, and we met in Colombia. He is from the UK, and we started a long distance relationship. I was in New Zealand at the time, living in a van, decided to sell it and move to the UK with him. And
Wow.
I had this relationship. COVID hit. I had no friends. I wasn't working. So it was just him and I. And it became a very enmeshed, codependent relationship on my end. Um, but that relationship, even though like I basically completely lost myself in it, I chose him over me. I chose the desire of wanting to be loved and the desire to experience um, good sex essentially, like for the relationship versus what my intuition was telling me, which at the time I didn't understand what I was feeling. I just thought I was like, I don't know how to love because my parents didn't show me what love looked like. I was just like victimizing myself. But instead, it was actually my intuition was screaming, hey, this is not for you. So after I left the UK and broke up with him, that's when I had this whole experience of I've been looking outside myself for my whole time of being sexually active, of like, maybe this partner will give me good sex. Maybe this partner will give me an orgasm. And I never pointed the finger and realized that the only consistent thing in every single scenario is me. And
Mm.
so 2 years ago was when I actually finally recognized I was pointing the finger out, and instead I pointed the finger in, and I took responsibility. And I took responsibility of really understanding like who I was, and but like giving myself orgasms and really starting the feminine journey. And that's when I found David Data, who is a huge foundation piece for me, which I learned about feminine and masculine energies and how we all embody those. It's not a gender thing. And what the feminine energy really is, which is surrender, it's trust, it's receiving, it's letting go. Um, and then that's when I found sensual embodiment. So that was the beginning for me, was losing myself to really find myself again. And that was like a whole 2 year journey, which I was in my sensual embodiment every day. I was on a TV show Below Deck, and I was doing sensual embodiment on my days off. And it was still super a part of my life, and it still is. And then when I moved to Austin, that's when basically I was able to actually think, because I left yachting and I was like, what do I want to do? Like, what do I actually want to put into this world? I've already traveled. I like did everything that people want to do with their lives, honestly, by the time I was 27. But the only thing I didn't do was something that fulfilled me. And I was like, I know the next thing for my life is something that fulfills me and like fulfills the world. And so with the space of like living somewhere for the first time since I was 19, and like giving myself time to reflect, and really the most feminine energy I've ever experienced, of letting go, of surrendering, and to receive, is how BPE really came through. Um, and just answering all the intuitive yeses and saying yes to all the things that felt stretchy and uncomfortable, and leaning into it. And honestly, I thought of BPE like 4 months ago, and now it's like a movement, like you said. So just saying yes to my intuition is really what led me here. But what I knowing that the power of my sensual energy that I experience is something that we all need to experience and we all get to experience. And the reason why I experienced it was because I gave myself the permission to like sensually move my body and sensually touch myself and to twerk in front of the mirror. And not many people I know give themselves that permission or give themselves that space to do that. And so that's really what BPE is that space, is that permission. Like I'm not really teaching you anything you don't already know. Everything that I provide is just a reminder. And it's all within you.
Wow, that's so incredible. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
it's amazing.
I feel like you've at, I guess what society would consider such a young age, like you're 27, you said?
I'm 28. Yeah.
28. Okay, 28. But like you're still in your 20s. You've had such deep experiences and you've become so deeply aware of yourself and your needs. And some people will go a whole lifetime and never have that experience or never realize it. So that's pretty incredible that you've been able to do that.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's all just part of my journey, right? Like if it wasn't for my foundation of spirituality, I wouldn't have had that awareness of, oh, I've been pointing the finger outside of myself. Like I wouldn't have known that I was the main cause. So it's like all the little things of my life have honestly added up to this. And it's knowing that is what's so exciting to think what's going to be in 20 years. You know, it's like this is just the freaking beginning, right? So thank you.
So cool. I knew me personally, like that's when things changed for me. I had that same experience when I'm like, what is the common denominator here? Me.
Yeah.
Okay, let's figure this out. Like,
yeah.
What is going on? What am I doing? And then, yeah, that's when everything changes.
Yeah.
So neat. I love that you talk about the difference between masculine and feminine energy, because I do feel like as women in society, we really do have to turn on that masculine energy in order to compete. And then it's so hard to get back to your feminine. Like, I know that's one thing, like at my point in my journey this year, I've been focusing on trying to reconnect with my feminine energy, my divine feminine. And it's hard. And I didn't realize like how disconnected I was from it, because you're constantly competing. You're constantly surrounded in a world created by men, dictated by men. And it's hard. And like you said, like so much of it, regardless of like what facet, is so performative. It's like you're always being watched by someone. You're always like, someone's always keeping tabs, or, you know, whether it is in society or your job, or sometimes even in your personal life, like whatever it is. So yeah, I love that you're giving women that space also to feel comfortable to do it, because it's not like you said, like twerking is the main basis. Like, not everyone just feels comfortable twerking in front of the mirror, but I love that you clap for each other and you just create that space of empowerment.
Yeah, I mean, you know, BPE started as a space, like I mentioned, for women to really explore their sensuality and explore their sensual energy. And like I am creating spaces for co-ed because it's in all of us, but there is such a powerful medicine when women come together to explore something that culturally we have been shunned and shamed for. Like all our bodies are offensive. I mean, I remember in third grade making sure my like shoulder straps were like 2 fingers width, because heaven forbid my shoulders were showing. You know, it's like our bodies aren't appropriate the second that we can learn how to walk, essentially. And so there's a shared experience in that. And so when you come together with other women and reclaiming something that lineagely, ancestrally has been so like wanting to be taken away from us, it's like, no, this is mine. Like you can't take away my sensuality. And that brings me to this memory that I have, and I think it's really important. And it's the epitome of what BPE is. I know you guys are in Canada, but in the US a few months ago, Roe vs. Wade was overturned, and I live in Texas.
That was like all like everyone was
of course right. And I live in Texas, which, you know, I live in Austin, which is super liberal, but like Texas is obviously not. And so it was a very intense moment, and it still is. However, I teach weekly classes in Austin, and ironically, I teach my twerk shop, Sensual Twerk Shop, every Fridays at 5 p.m. And the day Roe versus Wade got overturned was on a Friday. And so I, you know, was walking into class where I'm empowering women to feel and be empowered by their sensual energy at 5 p.m. when basically the government was like, no, your bodies aren't yours, right? And I was devastated. I was like, how am I supposed to show up as a facilitator, as a woman who is empowering others in owning their sensual energy when it felt like they took away my sensual energy? And that was the most powerful experience. And it's a foundation of BPE because when I walked into class, one, the feminine is a whole spectrum. It's not just your sexuality and your sensuality. It's also rage, sacred rage and anger, because that's another part of the feminine that we're not allowed to express. And like anger is like too much, like stop being chaotic or stop being crazy, right? Like we can't express our anger because then we're not being a good girl, essentially. And so it's in a yoga studio that I teach. So I gave every woman a bolster, which is basically like a hard pillow. And I basically just said, like, you might feel anger today. I do. And even if you're not angry about the situation, because it's a political thing, and I wasn't going to get into it. And I was like, if you're not angry about today, that's okay. However, let's go tap into that day in school when you were told that your shorts are too short and you got sent home. Like, just tap into that. And I didn't even talk about why. And I was just like, I'm going to give everyone 2 minutes to just scream and punch and kick and just be angry. And so for 2 minutes, like 15 women, we're all just screaming and we're letting out and we're screaming like, fuck you. Like we're just screaming. And you didn't need to know why you're screaming. I just gave the permission and space to scream, right? And then, I just started class. We get into sensual embodiment where I guide you through a sensual embodiment flow. All of our eyes are closed. So it's a very inward experience. And then we do a fun workshop and we're celebrating, we're cheering each other on. And it's like a sisterhood connection. We're cheering each other on in our sensual energy. And at the end of the class, I had everyone go around and say how they felt. So they walked in feeling disempowered, like something was taken from them, fear, and they walked out feeling empowered, sexy, like liberated, all from allowing themselves to, one, express anger, but then two, it shows that your sensuality and your sexual energy can never be taken from you. Even if it's been violated, it's still yours and it can never be taken, and no one can take it from you, and no one can. It's something within you, and it's not something I also give to you. I don't give women sensuality. I just give them the space to explore it on their own. And that class was the epitome of why I'm doing what I'm doing, to remind everyone and myself that it's innate, it's within you, and it's something that you can tap into because your sensual energy reminds you how fucking powerful you are.
Amazing.
I love that. I love that you're creating like a safe environment for women to feel empowered and like they're owning their own bodies. It's just amazing.
Yeah, that was, like I said, the most like I had no idea. Like I was like, how am I supposed to show up today? And then you just innately when I'm in the facilitated like space, I'm flowing. Like I'm what one would maybe call channeling. Like I'm just like open to whatever the energy of the room is calling me forward to.
And I think you did exactly what you were practicing what you're preaching. Like you're all about bringing what's inside of you out, and that day that's what you felt called to do, and you open it up to everyone else. And yes, feeling rage is so important. Like feeling rage, knowing that you can, and accepting it, knowing how to process it, because I feel like a lot of us, especially women, because we're taught to not be so emotional or whatever, we haven't learned how to acknowledge our emotions, own our emotions, process our emotions, because you're constantly being told to repress. So
well, and it's just understanding that like it's okay to feel anger. It's not okay to bring it out onto someone, which is what we usually see is like anger going back and forth with people. When I say a sacred rage ceremony, like it could be for 2 minutes. Like rage is just an emotion that just needs to pass through you. Like anger just needs to pass through you and be seen almost. And it's like when I do it in my room, like I'm literally just close the door, I grab a pillow and I just scream in the pillow.
Oh yeah, I've been
Or
there.
I yeah, pound my hands like like giving myself the permission to look like a child throwing a tantrum, because children know how to move through energy. They know how to move through emotions, and it's the adults that tell them no, that's wrong, because we don't give ourselves the permission to do that. So basically, like, anger is so fucking beautiful and sacred. It's just taking ownership of it and not putting it out onto someone.
So, what are some ways that women can connect to their femininity and their sensuality?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of ways, but I would say, like, I mean, the foundation of sensual embodiment and sensuality is presence. So being really present in your body. So like I mentioned, our day-to-day lives are mostly lived in our heads. So dropping down into the body can just look like, can literally just be a thought of like, how does my body feel? And and like taking a body scan. But the pillars for sensual embodiment for me are breath, sound, movement, and touch. So what that looks like I'll do in the morning is I close my eyes. So I take sight away so that instead of outward sight, I'm actually bringing my sight inwards. So I'm experiencing my inward body, and I just move my hands really slowly up and down my body and just get present and feeling comfortable touching my body because it's mine. Like in my class, I'm literally like, okay, if you feel comfortable, like say hello to your pussy and like touch your pussy, and then now touch your breast. And so just being comfortable with like touching your body because it's your body. And not having it to be a sexual experience. It literally just like I'm literally touching my breast right now talking to you because it's my boobies. Like I can do that. So just getting like really present with your body. And if that's like the first time that you've ever really intentionally like got, curiosity is a really beautiful energy to put towards this. So just being curious of like, ooh, what does my hand feel like? What happens when I slow down? What happens when I speed up, right? So just getting curious, um, and noticing the thoughts that are going through your head is a really amazing, talking about awareness. Like if you're having thoughts of like, oh my God, this feels really weird, or this is inappropriate, or this is like, this is uncomfortable, like, I don't know what I'm doing, I look stupid, like, that's okay to have those thoughts. They're probably going to happen. They're really common. From that awareness of those thoughts, that's when you can get curious and be like, oh, like, why do I think this is weird? I'm alone. Like, no one knows what I'm doing. This is my body. Like, that's when you get to like actually have a relationship to yourself and to how you view your body. So I would say those are the first steps.
I love that. So you said that you had a class on Fridays. You run a class on Fridays. Are these some of the things that you do with the women in your class? And what age groups of women do you normally come to your class? Like what are their day jobs? Like, is it a variety of women? Is it young women, older women? Is it like who is it? Who's coming to your classes?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I actually teach twice a week. I teach Wednesdays sensual embodiment, so that's like a more inward experience, and then Fridays is a twerk shop, and that's more sisterhood connecting. Um, and I do teach this all in my classes. They're 75 minutes and they're weekly, so they're just a beautiful foundation for women to come to. And because they're weekly, like it's formed a community. A lot of the women come every week, and it's at a yoga studio, so it has like a really just welcoming space, and it opens up this class to a lot of people who probably wouldn't have found it on their own. um I but the like I've had like 19-year-olds to like honestly probably like 65-year-old women. Like that's the range. I've had like I have students to moms with kids that are like in their 30s to older women. So there's no one person. And I've had women who have never done this before, and it's very stretchy and it's very like, wow, comfort zone was met, right? And then I've also had women who are professional dancers. So moving in their bodies is very natural and normal, but this space gives them space, so it's for them and it's just natural and it's not like for someone else. So it can be any range. It can be first time ever being sensual with yourself to I do this every day, but this just I'm receiving instead of guiding, you know.
I love that. And everyone coming together and being supportive. And
My best thing is like for all my classes and all my events and my retreats, like I say, show up in whatever you feel sexy in, because obviously that can look different on. Like I've literally, I'm not even kidding you, I've taught in my period underwear before. Like I'm on my period, and I don't feel like putting on booty shorts. I'm wearing these underwear, you know, like I fucking shown up that way. And my favorite is when this like 65-year-old woman came in her yoga pants, you know, yoga pants, t-shirt. And by the end of the class, she goes in the corner, takes her yoga pants off, and she's just in like this like thong, not cute, just like a nude thong. Like it's not like she was like, look at this sex. She was like, I want to be liberated. So she's just working in her thong, and I was like, this is why I do what I do.
that's amazing.
So it was just like that's powerful, you know.
I actually had an experience like that with an older woman this summer. I was on a tour, and we were in Barcelona, and she had never been to Barcelona before, and we had a little bit of free time. So she's like, I'm gonna go down to the beach by myself. So she had a little capris on. She was like, wait, and she was telling us this after. So I never witnessed this. She was telling us this, and she was so animated when she was telling us this. Just an amazing moment. And she's like, yeah, I went down in the ocean, and I was walking around holding my feet. And then I thought, what the hell am I doing? I'm in Barcelona. Life's too short to wear pants. She's like, I took off my pants right there on the beach and I went swimming. And we're like, yeah. Like,
oh my God, that's amazing. Yes, exactly.
She was someone who was like from a small town, like in Northern Ontario. She'd never been to Europe before. And here she is just like you said, like having this total moment of liberation on the beach in Barcelona in her underwear. And I was like, yes.
Yeah, you can learn something from that for sure. It's like
it was so incredible.
Beautiful.
So you mentioned that your twerk shop is about the sisterhood. Mm-hmm. So what does the sisterhood mean for you?
Yeah, so man, it's funny, like when you think about it, it's just women supporting women is really what sisterhood is, and recognizing that the space that I take up doesn't take away from your space, and the space that you take up doesn't take away from my space. That's something that I've really been understanding, is that space is infinite. So the more space that you take up, meaning the more powerful, the more embodied, the more like knowing of how powerful you are, and you actually fill in and you take up that space, the more space you get. It's not like you only have a certain amount of the pie. The pie just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It's infinite. And so sisterhood is recognizing the infinite of space. And what if my sister, my friend is showing up big and empowering others, she only gives me permission to show up big and empower others, and we lift each other up. It's not like a she goes up, I go down. It's she goes up, I go up, because you know what? She's my best friend. She's in my frequency. Like there's no losing. And the reason why this is kind of like a sisterhood thing is because culturally, I mean, I grew up like my mom always comparing me, and she would compare me being like, oh, you're the prettiest one of your friend. But that never made me feel good. I like always would get mad. I was like, Mom, but that means you're saying my friends are ugly, or that my friends aren't pretty. Like there's this, so even when there's a compliment, it's always a comparison of, well, they need to lose for you to win, or like we're competing for like, I mean, of course I'm human, and sometimes I walk into a room these days and I'm like, am I the best looking? You know, it's like that's just like, it's so ingrained in our culture. And so the sisterhood experience is really being aware of when those like unneeded competition and comparison and wanting to pull each other down pop up, and you're like, wait, no, there's space is infinite. When you rise, I rise. When you win, I win. So
that's what I think are like women in society need to recognize. And Nicole and I have talked about this with each other about how, you know, our mother's generation is our mom's 60, she's gonna be 63, 64 on Monday actually. And she, like, her generation is just so judgmental, so cutthroat, so like they're so inherently insecure because that's like what they were raised in. And there's been so many times where we've been like, no, we don't think that anymore, we don't say that anymore, we don't. And she's pretty self-reflective. She's like, oh, okay. But I feel like there's a definitely a change in like our younger generation. Like we're starting to change that, and we're actually starting to lift each other up, and we're actually, I feel like everyone's just so aware that we are, like you said, like we are powerful when we are together, and it's so nice to see. But it breaks my heart that for so long it hasn't been that way, and that so many women have lived such maybe like emotionally, mentally solitary lives because they haven't had that community to lift them up, like you said.
And it truly all starts with us, the women. Like everything starts with us. That's how powerful we are. And like, even for example, like, this is kind of off topic, but the same thing as like periods, right? So that's, even though I'm not like a period coach, which there are that, your period is something of a woman. Like literally 4 billion people in this world have periods, half the population. And yeah, it's something that we are like programmed to be ashamed of, like hide the tampon, don't let anyone see you have it in your hands. Like, what the fuck? And like be very hush about. And I've never felt that way. I don't know why, but I've just always been like, why is this hidden? Like, I don't get it. And it really starts with us. We're the ones that we change the narrative for the men. We change the narrative of what it's like to be a woman. So when I'm like, and it's the same thing with sisterhood. It's like when I'm on my period and and yes, of course my energy is drained. I'm like, I don't want to be, I'm not as active as I am when I'm ovulating. So I'll be like, if someone asks me to go, I'll be like, oh no, actually I'm on my period. It's like my wise women cycle. So I'm just going to lay low tonight, but maybe in 2 weeks, you know, it's like, we get to change the narrative of what it's like to be a woman, because what our generations before us they didn't, they only said what culturally was always said. Like we're just repeating the same patterns. And this is, like you said, I really feel like this is the generation that's breaking those patterns. It's like, I love you. You're a sister. Like, I want to see you thrive. And I'm on my period, and that's fucking amazing. Like, you know, we get to change the narratives.
Yeah, we need to stop feeling so shameful for having a period and doing what we need to do for ourselves.
There's definitely no shame in that. So when it comes to women trying to experience and connect with their sensuality, and women, I guess, learning to become a part of a sisterhood, because like we were saying, like forever women have been so disconnected, and now we're trying to connect with ourselves and connect with each other and lift each other up. What do you think some of the biggest roadblocks like you see are when it comes to maybe some of the clients that you have at the studio, or even just like your own life experiences?
The roadblocks to being like of creating sisterhood.
Yeah, to creating sisterhood, to accepting themselves as a part of, you know, like to not feeling shame, to accepting their bodies, and to lifting each other up in that sisterhood, to wanting to be a part of that.
Yeah, well, I guess I'll answer it by going the opposite way of how to have a sisterhood, because it is so different, right? Like there's even a term for it, because it's like not our innate knowing. And for me, how I pulled in sisterhood into my life is just being extremely authentic. So authenticity instead of putting the mask on. So for example, like when I talked about how like, yeah, sex is great. Like I just put that mask on of like, yeah, I love sex. Like that's not how I experience sex. However, I outwardly would say that, and like I would outwardly like be like, oh yeah, like this guy, it was great. You know, we had sex, it was great. When I didn't actually mean that. So how am I gonna have like there's no way I have a foundation of a good relationship with my girlfriends. It wasn't until I started being very transparent and just being very authentic and honest of my own experiences and my truths is when a sisterhood or any foundation of being fully seen was formed. And that's really what like a sisterhood is. Like you can walk in, like if you came to a BPE class, like you would feel it like automatically because the environment that's created is an environment of we're talking about and we're embodying parts of ourselves that are exiled. So you walk into something that's you can't be inauthentic. Like everyone's doing like something that's vulnerable, but with joy and with fun and with ease. Like the environment's created there. So if you don't have a space like that, it starts with you, and it starts with you being authentic and being vulnerable and just being maybe saying like, hey, like I would love to just get coffee, and like, drinking's not really a big part of my life. And I also think that's been a big benefit as well of not like I do drink, but it's not my friends and I, we don't drink to hang out. And I think that's also really big, a part of it because societally, that's how a lot of people hang out with each other is through alcohol and through drinks. However, maybe there's like the first 5 minutes is the only like authentic time until like you kind of get that drink flow.
That's really interesting, actually, that you say that. It just made me kind of reflect for a second there about a lot of the people that I was friends with in my 20s, I don't hang out with anymore. And that's because all we really had in common was we would get together, drink, go out, have a good time. But now, like, what's space? Like, there's nothing in between. And so
And I say this from a space of someone who fucking partied. I did it. I did it all. I lived in Miami. I like party, like, so I know what it's like. And like, I did it and I got it out of my system because this is what's actually the most potent. And it's authentic relating. There was even a point where I was like, have I had sex sober? Like, that's like literally where I was at when I worked on yachts like 2 years ago. And man, that wakes you up. You're like, Jesus. Oh,
That's a good question.
I mean, it's a good question to ask for sure.
There's always these like, I feel like there comes a point in your life where you just, you ask yourself these questions, and that's kind of turning point.
Hmm.
Yeah. Oh man. So how can you mentioned it a little bit about in the beginning, the difference between owning your own sensuality and performing for someone else. So how can women distinguish between if you are being sensual for yourself and you are having an experience that is authentic to your body versus performing for someone else?
Sure. Well, I mean, the first one is pretty obvious is like actually just do it alone first. Like do it like for me, my full length mirror is like my sacred space. Like it's like equivalent to what someone's I forgot the word, whatever, temple or whatever is. So first is actually move and like be in your body only for yourself. And of course, those thoughts of like, what am I doing? This looks stupid. This feels weird will come through. Just be aware of them and just question them. And then, however, if you do come to a point where you're moving your body or you're being sensual with someone else witnessing you, which is where I teach lap dancing because it's so powerful. Lap dancing is so powerful. I've never felt so empowered in my life from lap dancing. And the difference of performance and doing it from my own pleasure is the energy of how you feel. Like if you feel like you're giving energy and you're like depleted at the end, that means you were performing. And like filling up your own cup is like I am fully like in my body. Like when I'm lap dancing, I don't even honestly with so much love don't care about that person in the chair. Like it's not for them. So I'm not thinking like, oh, my partner loves my ass. Let me make sure I do this favorite move. Like I'm not thinking that. If I want to show my ass, it's because I want to show my ass. Or if I want to like move my body in a certain way, it's because I want to. And half the time my eyes are closed. yeah, that's super powerful to do eye contact, but that's a different level. So if that's not where you're at, being in your body and closing your eyes while still being witnessed is a great start as well to really recognizing, okay, am I doing this for someone or doing this for me?
So overall, like you said that you started BPE 4 months ago, which I think is pretty incredible. That, I mean, you seem to have started something great, and I can't wait to see where it goes. What's your ultimate manifestation for BPE going forward?
Well, it is a movement. So I am in Austin, Texas right now. However, it's going to be in different cities all over the country where, it will start with me, but I would love to train and facilitate, like do a training for other women to be able to facilitate as well. Um, but I really love doing like 4-hour events where it's basically you get all of that in one space. And they're like 100 to 500 women, like mass, like stadium type experiences, all over the country and world, like in different cities. So that's the big one. But in general, it's like impacting and touching as many women as possible with this permission and with this liberation that's on the other side. So retreats, like events, I love doing in person, and that's why I call myself a facilitator because I love holding space. Like that's what BPE is really just me holding space for women to experience this. So yeah, just like getting as big and impactful as I can get for everyone. I call BPE like she's like separate. She's like a separate entity. So I say for her, meaning for BPE.
You just
Do you ever hold online?
Do I ever?
Sorry, do you ever hold online workshops? Yeah.
Yeah, I've done some virtual classes. I'm actually making a program right now, so that's like a 3-month online program. It'll be live, where there's 2 calls a week. So that's definitely going to be something in mid-January when it comes out. But that's another thing is like I'm creating community, like a community platform right now.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask too, because I mean, obviously you're in Austin, we're in Canada, so we can't come down to one of your classes, but there's so many people that I want to take one of your class. I want to take one of your classes now. So
yeah,
I want to take one.
Yeah, no, it's just really fun. It's definitely like obviously in person is the best, but the knowledge and the codes just to experience it is the best. And if you do it in your room, that also allows you this visceral somatic experience of like moving for yourself in the comforts of your own home and your safety. So yeah, it's really powerful.
So what is one last piece of advice you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Ooh, that
or multiple pieces of advice.
Yeah. Well, I first would love to just hit on that this I'm going to say air quotes here, the scary parts of you, the exile parts of you can and are usually your greatest gifts. And I say that because, on the topic of sensuality and it being like an exile part from our community or from our society, like there's a reason, because when you own all parts of you, no one can tell you like anything because you know who the fuck you are. It's this queen energy of like, I know my darks and I know my lights and I love them all and they're both beautiful. And obviously, once you own and accept all of you, and you meet people like that sometimes who just are so unabashedly like themselves. Like Miley Cyrus is a great archetype that I love to like mention because she just owns all of herself, and she's like, I'm gonna make the #1 rock album, and she fucking did. And everyone told her not to. Everyone's like, you're crazy, and she's like, watch me, and she did. And that's like what I'm saying is like that is within all of us. And that's like BPE is like it's within all of us. And it's not forced, oh, that's just Brittini, like that's her. No, it's all of us. It's innate. It's like hunger. It's the same exact thing. We all have sexual organs. We all have a birthright to experience pleasure. And so just open yourself up and giving yourself permission to actually like explore that. That's what I would say.
Amazing.
Permission is so important.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah.
if our listeners want to connect with you a little further and if they're as excited to get into one of your online workshops as we are, where can they connect with you?
So I have my Instagram, which is Brittini Burton. Big Pussy, she has her own Instagram as well, which is Big Pussy Energy with one S. And I also have my website, bigpussyenergy.co. So all of those are great options.
Very cool. We will be sure to put those in our show notes, but thank you for speaking with us today. Thank you for inspiring us and empowering us. I cannot wait to see where this movement takes you and takes her and like where it goes. It's going to be incredible. And we'll definitely be watching and hopefully participating.
Yes, I would love that. Thank you guys so much for giving me this space and asking such great questions. It was so fun.
Oh, thank you so much.
That's it for our show today. Thanks for joining. Remember, you can always reach out to us on our socials, on Instagram at sisterhood_of_healing, or on TikTok at Sisterhood of Healing. We love to hear from you, so please reach out to us at any time. Thank you for journeying with us today. We'll see you next time.